That means also that if you are asking questions, then of course the information about you that is visible on the screen will be available in that video as well. And you can also ask questions via the chat. And this regards, of course, both technical questions, but also if you don't want to raise your hand, you can use the chat for other things. Okay. So with this very short introduction, I want to open the floor immediately for questions. Meanwhile, you start thinking. I can just repeat some of the basic informations, which I think that is, hopefully in all of your mind. I would say if any one of you are not already in an application that is being written or haven't been in discussion with one, then you should know that the call closes in about just a few days. So on the 12th of September. So there's really not much time. So this is the time for those of you that are up and running in the applications. I give some time if you have questions. And Julia, please, can you help me if you see any hands that I do not see?
Oh, yeah, at the moment I don't see any. Yes, Ulf Hager.
Yes, hello everyone. So thanks for providing this opportunity to ask questions. So from our side, we would have two questions. So one of them would be, is there any requirements towards the funding rate, either let's say on national side or also let's say on global side of the total project?
So I can start on the global side. Most of the partners, and then of course this will align on the national, so all of them follow with their instruments the same state support rules in principle as the European Commission. But aside from that, there is the possibility when you set up the project, depending on the elements, that you might have different support rates in different countries. And there is not on the global level or on the international level, there is not a barrier that you cannot have a very high funding rate or a very low funding rate. What I would say should be the guidance here is more that the relevance and the focus of your project, of course, should try to aim as good as possible towards the TRL and the theme of the call. Then, of course, on the national level, I don't know every partner, but I'm pretty sure that some of them have some limitations that doesn't maybe exactly overlap. So I don't know if you want to, I'm not sure if we can let every one of the funding partners answer, or if you want to know if in some certain countries, or so, if you're.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but okay, thanks for that part of the answer. So first of all, also to specify a bit more my question. So especially, I mean, I'm from Germany, and in Germany we know that usually there is calculated somehow an average funding rate of the whole project, and then if that is a bit low, then that means there is much industry partners, and if it is quite high, that means there is many university or research partners, and then usually there is the wish to have a good average between industrial partners and research partners. And that is also, let's say, the question if that is the case here for the national project. And then, yeah, if maybe Mr. Eickhoff could also answer for the German side, if there is some requirements for the average funding rate, that would also be great.
Yeah, so I step in, to answer your question, Ulf. So basically, we do not have any restriction in this call. So we will grant the funding rates based on the task and work that is done by each individual German partner. So let's say in general, we will grant a full financing of the academic partners and an adequate funding rate to the industrial partners. Typically, we use higher funding rates in the EnerDigit calls compared to the normal national level, and we will do this in this call as well. So we will definitely grant higher funding rates to SMEs compared to the national level, and we will not calculate an average funding rate on the German part. We will look at each partner individually. What are his tasks and his effort? What is the TRL of his work? And based on that figures, we will calculate the funding rate. So there is no major difference to the national level. There is no restriction in upper limit. Of course, 100% is the upper limit. But be aware of the specific restriction that we apply in this call, that we only will grant costs for personnel and travel, because we have a tight schedule in granting, and therefore we decided only to fund personnel costs and travel costs. And also for travel costs, we will use a default rate that is specified in the national requirements, 250 euros per travel in Germany and 750 euro per travel inside Europe. And based on the number of travels you plan, you can adjust the travel costs at all. So I hope this answers your question.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much for this answer.
Thanks, Ralph, for the clarification. And maybe as an additional comment, because I think although we cannot say for every funding partner, but in general, this is usually the case that there might be somewhat higher funding rates in the EnerDigit calls. But again, it always depends on your national partner. But as all of you that have read the call text know, there is also, in relation to this, we have a high ambition on the activities and the aspects that are related to your international collaboration. When it comes to the average support rate of your project, I think here you should, when you think of it internationally, you should think of if you were one of the experts in the panel to evaluate the project, might there be a difference if there's a 100% funded and it's more research focused compared to one that has lower? And that depends, of course, on what you are to do in the project and how competitive it is in that relation. So for the sake of a good ranking of your project, then of course there you can find the right mix, and then you need to match it with the national priorities, which always can be tricky, but it's one of the important things here for you to do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Great. Can I ask also my second question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Great. So this is also related, let's say, to the overall process. So is it, or can you already tell us, in case that we would be asked for writing, let's say, the national proposals, then in the second step, when that is supposed to be?
Okay, it somehow addresses the German part, but also the general part. So in this is, or what I tell now is valid for all German partners. So please keep in mind the following. The call will close next week, and we will receive all the proposals from the call management, I hope as soon as possible. And we plan to organize a pitching event on September the 20th, where each project has the opportunity to present their ideas in a 15-minute time slot. So, and based on this short presentation, we will assess the eligibility from the German perspective to the proposal, and then we hand over all the proposal to the external reviewers that then finally evaluate all the proposals and compile the ranking list. And then, Frederick, please help me. What is the specific time schedule for for the granting process. I think early in November we will internally have the decision in the ERANET, and then you can plan writing the national proposals in November. But from the German side, we will accept the English proposal as the project description and demand only for a specific impact outline and maybe some additional comments for the task and efforts you spent on the project. It should be not so much, and I think you can do this within 2 weeks. So expect the national application middle of November until end of November.
Thank you, Ralph. I think you got also the important parts of the international process there also, but just to clarify, so you know, so this the exact dates that you mentioned for the German part, this might differ for some of the other funding partners. When it comes to the overall outcome, when we communicate to all the applicants what are the outcome of the call, and there we will also then, based on the decision by the board, which follows the rank, of course, of the projects, we will communicate those projects that are selected for funding, and this will be during November. So just like Ralph said, this is when you then will be able to start with whatever is the exact national steps. But in some cases, it is to write an application, and maybe in some cases you already have written that during this phase. To that, I'm not sure at the moment, but so this is the timeline. Then it usually, although we of course want to push it as fast as possible, but since there is a coordination both from your and our side, this will take some time. So it might be when the project exactly starts, this can always be a little bit of deviation between the different projects, but you start the final phase here with the national contracts in November when you've received the decision. Okay. Very good questions. Do you have more, Ulf?
No, thanks a lot for these answers. So this is really very helpful information. So from my side, I'm done with the questions so far.
Very good. Thank you. And then I leave over if you have, there's someone else of you who have questions. Now you already got warming up a bit and some good insight. But meanwhile, we're waiting to see if more of you raise your hand. I can
chat.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat. Let me see. I didn't see it coming up. Can you read it?
I can read it. Can we use this is from Swansea Kai. Can we use the companies or organizations outside participating countries and regions as the project observers?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. Thank you. Yeah, in general, that is possible, and many times also this is encouraged. What is important is that when you say observer, at least because sometimes the definition and the expectation can be different, but what is important here is that if it is a partner in the project that requires funding from the funding network, then it needs to be a partner that is eligible for funding of some of these partners that we have in the list in the call text. But any partner that participates outside of that network can do so if you still have resources for their work. Usually when it is an observer, there might not be extensive hours to put in, but you can have them as partners, but you need just to make sure that you don't assume that you can get funding from them. And I say if this is the case that you would need funding, then you need to check with any of the national partners on which budget you would put that cost. And then it depends what kind of activity, but usually observers is not something that is not applicable for funding. And so I hope this answers the question more or less. So yes, they are encouraged to participate, but probably they will not be able to get funding. Then I see a second question. Can we use our own living labs, existing village building, or should we use those recommended ones? So you can use your own living labs. That's no limitation. And the ones that we have recommended, maybe more than a recommendation, you should interpret it as a way for us to try to provide support in the outreach of the network, because in some cases you might not know if there is a living lab in the area, and this is to support and facilitate the contact. If you have your own resources, we are more than happy if you bring them into your project. But the same thing, of course, is important there, like in the question before. For anyone you involve in the project, if you have cost related to their activities, you need to put it on some of the partners that are part of the application, and make sure with the funding agency that these costs are eligible. So either if it is a cost in like a service that someone in the project buys, you need to make sure that this is an eligible cost. Or sometimes if it is a partner with this direct connection in the project, then you need to make sure that those costs related to that activity is eligible. But you can use your own living labs, yes. Okay, I hope this answered those two questions. If not, please just write another comment. Now somehow I can see the chat. I don't know what I did wrong before, but now I should be able to see if there are more written questions. And in the meantime, if you happen to have some more questions, you want to raise the hand, you are more than welcome.
We have a raised hand.
Yeah.
Bulent.
Please go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for your presentation. My question is about the budget part of the submission system. We have created a project in the submission system and entirely completed, but at the end, the budget part, we get a little bit confused, because in the budget Excel sheet, the project manager is prepared as another and dedicated partner. So we have 4 partners, but the project manager is requested as another entity, another partner. So we get confused about the planning in the budget part, because, as you know, the partners should be planned as budget balanced, and the project manager is in the one of the partners part. So how can we plan the project manager as a dedicated partner with cutting off the other partners? So I'm just confused about this part. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bulent. I'm, as always, just as difficult it usually is for any applicant to copy with all the details of any application system, or at least I know myself from experience. I'm not sure if I followed all the aspects, so maybe it might be that we should try also bilaterally afterwards if there are specific things we need to go through in the portal. I think the general thing here, if I get it right, so you have a part that is dedicated for the program manager of the project, but you and maybe here you need to help me. Did you say that these parts you've already covered in that partner's budget in another field, or you want them to be covered? So do you want to split something you already have, or you don't know how to combine something?
Thank you. The problem is here is As we are 4 partners, but the project manager is requested another partner, an entirely different, as a different partner. So we are getting 5 partners. So the project manager is should be in my point, should be in one of the partners' budget, but in this case, the project manager is requesting to be a different partner to be planned as a budget. So the budget for the project manager should be planned in the one of the partners who is getting the project manager, or is that should be entirely different partner? Because as we know that the partners balance, budget balance should be not shouldn't be planned to a percentage as a 70% or 30% below. So we need to get the project manager plan the budget as a not to be lower than 30% of the other partners. So here is a different case from the European Union Horizon Europe project proposal budget planning process. So about your question is, I think that should we cut the project manager budget from the partners, what it is belonged to? From my point of view, it's yes. For me, we should plan the project manager budget as a partner in one of the partner, and we should cut the partners project manager balance out of this part, where it belongs to. I'm getting difficulties here, but as you said, I will get contact with the submissions.
Maybe some general guidance, and maybe this can be helpful still. I mean, in comparison to, when you apply in the Horizon portal, then if it, so not in an EnerNet project, but you have a project directly to the Horizon, then any information, all the details you write in that system is also what is transferred directly into how you then calculate the support rates and everything. And in this case, it's not exactly that way, although it's the same numbers, but the presentation of these numbers, of course, can vary a bit, because at some point after your project is evaluated and if it is selected for funding, you will have, with the different partners of your project, they will have to settle their national or regional application with the funding partners. And here is where it can differ a bit. So what you should, when you write the international application, what you should think of is that you have, I would say you have 2 different target groups. One is, I need to write, and whatever distribution you do, because we all know that with any system, it has its way of dividing, and it might not copy the way you want to present it. But anyway, you need to still fill it in there. And so try to present it, and also if there is necessary in the comments in your written part of the application, present it in a way so that the evaluators that read, so there will be 2 different external appointed evaluators that will read your proposal, and they will read it with the eyes that they should understand what you want to do and how the overall budget resources are distributed, just like in a Horizon project. So nothing strange. So this should be possible for them to understand. But then when it comes to the granting process, and this is when you move over to the other target group. So at the same time as the evaluator reads, then also, of course, the different funding partners will read, so I have one German partner here, I have one Scottish partner here, and what they need to know is how much funding is the German partner applying for, and what are the activities the German partner do. The same thing for the Scottish partner, and just hypothetical example. And here is where if you then have, let's say that the program manager of the project manager is the part of the Scottish, then it should be clear then to the Scottish agency that here is where a lot of the project management So that's why maybe on the cost of them, the distribution will look very different to the others. I don't know if this helps you, but just to think about it that way, then that can maybe help you a bit if you are not sure how to present it. But having that said, I think it's good to also contact, and I think you should have all the contact information for the portal when you see the page. Otherwise, you are more than happy also to write me an email, and I will try to get you in the right contact so you can get the right guidance.
I appreciate. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. I see some more questions in the field. So one is a question whether the Living Lab should be certified, and I'm not sure. I mean, I can answer again on a very general level. So there is no criteria or rule that you can only use certified labs. I think also what we should think of when we say Living Lab, although there are some text material and aspects written about it, we know that the definition can always be a little bit varying exactly on what you define as a living lab. I think here, again, this is a type of question that if you think of it in the point of view of the funder, the specific funder that would fund an activity related to the living lab or the use of the living lab, then of course you need to make sure that if the certification or the lack of certification could be an issue for that funder, then you need to check it with them. The other perspective where you should look on it is on the international level when it comes to the evaluators of your project. So does it have an important difference whether it is certified or not? I cannot think of all the different situations that might occur or the context, but I could imagine that there might be some context where this would be of very high importance, but there might be others, depending also on what type of living lab it is, where maybe this is not the crucial aspect of it. But that's something you need to define and explain clearly to the evaluators what is the case. And for the others, it is about the that it is fundable in the sense from the partners. So I don't know if this answered your question. So it was an answer that could be a little bit summarized. It depends. I don't know if there are some of the partners that want to add something on that. But no, it doesn't seem. And then I see in the comment you made also directly after that your living lab is certified by ENOL. I think when you have a certification, it always has some kind of meaning. And of course, this is something you should use to your advantage, because when it means that they have there is a quality stamp or there is something, then of course you can use that in your application to make sure to promote the qualities of your proposed project as much as possible. Then there is another question. Can we use companies, organizations? No, sorry, that's one I've already answered. Maybe it came late to me. Yeah.
We have a raised hand from Sandra.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry for interrupting. You were just talking about national contact points, Frederick. So I wanted to give an update from the Austrian side. As opposed to the note in the call text, there are new contact points in Austria. I'm going to post our contacts in the chat. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions with respect to the national submission. The national deadline in Austria is on September 19th. So please don't hesitate to, reach out to us and to seek support from us. So that's just a brief side note from our side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra, for that important information. And also, of course, important for everyone to know we have sometimes some updates, and also for all of us funding partners, welcome also to the network, to all the new contacts. In general, also to all of you that are in an application right now, if there would be the case that you cannot get in contact with the national contact point and there is some problem, of course you should also then try to reach out to the call management, and we will try to guide you or in what way we can help you to get in that contact, so you should not feel lost.
Just to go back to that previous question, I believe there is a slight addition to the question which says company or organization in England acts as a Scottish application. So if you want to like add to your response.
Oh yeah, thank you. Sorry, I thought it was because I didn't see that question in the beginning. I thought first it was my computer that delayed it, but I see. I think when it comes to this specific question, and I do think we have our Scottish funding partner on board, Karen. Is Karen, you are online? Yeah.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Maybe you can help us sort out. So the question was, can we use the companies or organization outside participating countries and region as the project observers? For example, company or organization in England act as a Scottish application. So I'm not sure if it's all the information you need, but maybe you can give a general response first to what are the criteria on your side from the Scottish.
Yeah. Okay, so at the high level in Scotland, we can only fund companies that are based in Scotland and carrying out the R&D on the project in Scotland. The role of observer, I think it would really depend what you had in mind, what the observer would do, and if there are any costs associated with that. It's very difficult for us to fund directly the costs of a company based in England. If there was a role in the project that benefited all of the partners, and particularly the Scottish partners, and there was some small amount of cost involved for the observer, then that's something we could discuss maybe in more detail. That could be included in the eligible costs for the Scottish partner. For example, if it was covering travel costs or something like that. But we need to know exactly what you wanted to do and if there were costs involved. I don't know if that
Thank
helps.
you, Karen. Yeah, very good. Did that respond to your question, or you have a follow-up? Seems like
okay.
Yeah.
It raises this question because the observer probably is will act as the project advisory board and maybe give us a bit of suggestion. So you attending maybe annual meeting, this kind of role, and that is the role of the observer. We want to have it.
So you might want to include costs to cover their travel, for example.
Exactly, just the
travel. Yeah, I mean, it's something that could be considered as part of the cost of the project for the sort of core project partners. Whether it should be in the Scottish budget or somebody else's budget, it would depend on the structure of the partnership and who's leading your work packages and things like that. It's something we could definitely discuss if you want to get in contact directly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. I'm looking here also, there was some questions coming up on the deadlines, and just to clarify, so the deadline for the international, for the general application is 12th of September, just so you don't confuse yourself. Then depending on exactly how the different national rules are and regional rules, there might be deviations. And this was also mentioned by Sandra. So in the Austrian case, there is a few days more for the national information of the Austrian application. This could be, I don't know, but it might be the case then in some other. But just so you are not too confused, we know this is always the challenging part for you as applicants, because you have the international level and then you need to keep an eye somehow on the national level. And one thing also here with the international level, so the 12th of September, but be aware that it closes at 2 o'clock on Central European summertime. So it's 2 o'clock. Yeah, but hopefully this should not be too confusing for you. Then let me see, are there more questions? I see a comment here from Serik Municipality, is a public organization and legal entity located in Antalya, Serik in Turkey. Turkey. Working areas of Serik Municipality are as follows: women's work, youth, social service, climate change, disaster affairs, culture, parks and gardens, zoning and urbanization sports. We also have 2 local partners from Turkey for the project. We are waiting for good news. So I'm not sure if this was a question, sorry I read it out. Maybe it was looking out for more partners, or if there was a question that I didn't understand, then you could please raise the hand. Otherwise, yeah, maybe that was it. Okay, then I ask back maybe to our colleagues, can you see any more hands? I don't see any hands.
There is one question
in
the chat. Yeah, just
okay.
one
Oh,
more.
yeah, from Matei. Thank you. So in the application form, there are 2 IDs to fill in: application ID and registration of interest ID. Could you please tell us where to find those IDs? Okay, now this was a very specific question that seems very important, since you need to fill it in. I will need to check back because I don't know this exact. So our partner at the Nordic Energy Research, which is hosting the application portal, they will need to answer that question. But please write this question to the call management email address, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. I will also make sure that I think we have, you should have seen there is a Q&A section also on the webpage. We will make sure to put it up there also, but I'm sorry I cannot answer it right away here. Okay, do we have any more questions? Seems silent now for a moment. I don't see any more in the chat, but you still have the time.
Yeah, there is one now.
Yeah.
From Adrian.
Oh yeah, so there in the guideline there was a recommendation for the project duration and budget. That's correct. I'm not sure if yeah. So the total budget around 1 million for a consortium of 5 partners. Maybe was that the question, or you wanted to ask something in relation to that?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I was asking what would be the recommendation Is it like for establishing the budget for each partner, considering these aspects? So we need to consider projects which have the duration around 20 months, 18 months, and given that there was specified that for a consortia with 5 to 7 partners, the budget is around 1 million, that would be probably maximum 200,000 per partner.
Yeah, so this is so you should read the guidance as a very general average that we can expect from both based on experience, but also based on what we have as available budgets. Then when it comes to your project, I think the duration of the project is, of course, more important in relation to the expected outcome of the call and the overall timeline. So anything that is, I would say anything that is eligible in terms of what the call text and what is feasible is possible from your side. But this recommendation should not be read that then it has to be exactly 20 months. So it can be a little bit shorter, it can be a bit longer, as long as you at the same time make sure that this works with any of the national constraints you might have, depending on what partners you have. Then when it comes to the total budget, yeah, you mentioned that would equal about 200,000 per partner, but we know also this can be distributed in different ways depending on what the different partners contribute with. In some cases, you might have more research heavy aspects and partners in some countries, and you have more close to market related or industrial activities in other parts. And it could be of the nature of these activities that some of them are costlier, others are not. So then this can be reflected in a different distribution, both in terms of the project budget, but also in the support rate for these different partners on what you are applying. So basically, this is just an expected average, but yeah, you can deviate from that, but hopefully it should help you to get an idea, because what we want to avoid when we write this is we want to avoid that there might sometimes be a case where someone apply almost all the call budget for one project. And this, of course, even if it would be technically possible, it is very unlikely that that project would be granted if there was not something very specific with that and it matched everything. And there might also be other cases where the distribution of funding or the number of partners is not really feasible to the type of project that we're looking for. So this should help you to have an idea on how the project can be outlined. But then please don't get stuck on that this should be exact. Think of what are the needs for your project, how can you in the best way make the best impact and get as far as possible with the ideas and the things that you want to do and propose in your project. So I hope that
it's clear. I don't know if this matter was previously discussed. I was participating in another meeting, so I tried to catch up as much as possible here. What would be the recommendation for involving the digital platform providers?
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, here again, it depends very much on what kind of interaction or how you would include them. Of course, from the funder's point of view, but maybe most difficult for you, but what we really would like to see and that we are always looking for is many times when you have energy transformative and in this case in relation to digital transformation, when you have project and you will of course have some kind of relation to data and data platforms. And we know that when it comes to data platforms and data platform providers, there's a lot of infrastructure that are already developed and that is out there. But what you can usually contribute with when you do a project which has a focus on the energy transformation as well, you can combine this with an application, a functionality, something that brings extra value. So having that said, when you, one of the reasons why we want to reach out and connect to the data platform world is that it's also a call from us to not ask you to develop a new data platform. Sometimes this might be necessary, but too many times in a project, there might be a completely new data platform that is developed from scratch. Because it doesn't exist in the energy field, but then the solution might be instead that you should look for an application that is already out there, but that could be adapted. So this is why we point to the data platform providers. Then more concrete, depending on who or what network that you would discuss with in your project, of course, there might be costs related to this, but we want to avoid the costs which are more heavily involved in the development of the data platform infrastructure, but rather the application of something on that structure. So I hope that can give you some guidance.
And if it's the case to, let's say, use one of the infrastructure of a data platform provider, should we get that provider as a partner, or it can be subcontracted for their services? What is the proper?
Yeah, so I would say both of those cases could work. It depends on, here it depends on a little bit on your project design and also in relation to how you will apply funding. So if you put it as, let's say you put it as a partner, then you need to make sure that they are an eligible partner in one of the countries of the funding partners. Yeah. And that the activities would be fine. So that's something you would need to check with them. Of course, some footwork you need to do, but that would be a way to check that. If that is possible, you find, oh, they can apply funding here. And of course, then what is always also in the mindset, if they are a partner, that means that they contribute with some of their own funding, because they will not be 100% funded usually. So they will need to have funding themselves that they will put up, or they have some other funding source that could do that. If you instead want to have them as a subcontractor, that's usually a better idea if the case that they are interested to work together with you, but they are not ready to put any of their own funding. So you would have to, within the other project partners, you would have to cover for the cost. Then you can put them as a cost, as a service you buy, or however it would be put in. And then again, you will, in this case, you will need to put it together with some of the national partners, because that budget will need to be applied from some of the national partners. And then again, you will not get fully funded that cost. So some of the costs need to be co-financed by that partner that then applies for this. So there's the biggest difference, I would say. If you have it as subcontracted, then there might be more opportunities on where it could be put. So any partner that would be ready to co-finance their cost, they could probably apply for this to their within their national budget. But if they are ready to co-finance themselves, then probably it's better to have them as a project partner.
Yeah.
Hopefully that can help you a little bit, but maybe it doesn't solve your issue. I don't know.
No, it's very clear. We already discussed some possibilities for this issue, and now it's confirmed on what we already chosen. If I can make just a last announcement, because other participants use the chat. So I will just leave my contact email in the chat. We are working on a project proposal, and we would like to strengthen the consortia if other partners from and I'm not excluding any countries, I'm just naming who are eligible, like Austria, Czech Republic, or Scotland. If they are willing to get in contact, please do. My email, it's in the chat.
Okay, Mihai, thank you very much. And good, I think also a short comment also on that question, maybe more on the technical side, but this is an example, I think, when you need to think, and maybe for those of you now working on applications, you've already realize that, or you know this, but this is where there might be a difference to when you apply to an AirNet call like this in comparison to when you apply directly to the horizon, because you need to keep this dimension on what is possible on the national level and where would this come in, and that's yeah, not always so easy, but it's worth giving it some extra thoughts before you decide how to set it up, because that will hopefully make your life easier if you choose a smoother path now when you set it up. So that's good. And oh, Adrian, sorry, it was Adrian that was the your name. I mixed up here, but I see now you put your contact and email in the chat. That's good, so everyone can see. Then there is a question from Suleya. I'm not sure if that was correctly pronounced, but the question was, will the information note be shared later for the Q&A session? And how can I get the answers to the previously asked questions? So as mentioned in the beginning of this meeting or this Q&A session, we have recorded all of this, so we will put the whole session online so you can watch it again and there listen to what the answers were to the previously asked questions. If you refer to questions that were not asked in this session but on other sessions, then we would guide you to the webpage where there is a specific Q&A session, and there is also recording from one meeting when we launched the call. So there you might also be able to listen to some. So I hope this helps you to sort it out. Okay, I'm checking now if we get any more questions. We are slowly but steadily getting towards 3 o'clock, and we will soon close for this session, but there is still a few minutes left. So I don't see any more questions in the chat. I don't see any more hands at the moment. Then I want to start to say that thank you very much for your participation in this session, but specifically for your work and interest in the call. We hope that you got some better clarity on some of the things where you have an uncertainty. And great, now I see here also an answer in the chat from our colleagues at Nordic Energy Research. Please enter the same idea in both fields. So if Matej, if you're still around, you can see here, but if there's still question related to this question, you should not hesitate to send an email to the call management as earlier mentioned. To all the others of you, if you have more questions after this session, even though the session will be closed, we are of course still somewhere out there. So give us an email to the call management or contact your national partner if you have questions. Be careful to not miss the deadline on 2 o'clock in the afternoon on September the 12th, so that make sure you have some margin. We always have some close calls with someone trying to close the application a few minutes before, and there might always be technical issues. And if you miss the deadline, in order to be just towards everyone, we cannot let you get extra time. So make sure that you have some margin there. Okay, and then last but not least, thanks to all of our funding partners that were online also supporting with answers to the questions, and thanks to our support team for your, as always, great support so we can set up these sessions. And we look forward to soon receive a lot of interesting applications and together with you be able to support the best and most interesting paths towards the transition. Okay. Then I say goodbye because I don't see any more hands. I see some last information in the chat, but thank you everyone. Have a good rest of the day and see you soon, maybe in some similar setting.